Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. My name's Joe. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at the new 75 Years of Racing Tribute Collection for Red, White, and Blue Racin from Plaay Games. This was just released. I received it the other day. I have not busted into it yet, as you can see. It is still in its packaging. So this basically is the 75th year of NASCAR, so in honor of that, Keith Avalone enlisted Jerry Minks, who's kind of the NASCAR history guru, who's done several, or helped Keith do several of the more historical sets for this game. And they kind of put their heads together and came up with a way to do cards that cover the 75 drivers that NASCAR chose to be their, top 75 drivers of the first 75 years, essentially. Similar thing to, when the NBA did its NBA at 50 and NBA at 75. Baseball's done it. Football does it. Every sport does this kind of thing where they rank players based on their career and, they make their top whatever of whatever based on the anniversaries and so forth. So this one is actually kind of interesting because the cards have been redone. They're now in a landscape format, as you can see. And the format is also different, where we have the gas pedals at the top. We have brake pedals at the back, or brake at the back. I always call it brake pedals. It's not really called that in the rules, but it's just brakes. And then you have your qualities here on the side. You can see the gold. This is the regular version and the gold version for Fireball Roberts, who was a early NASCAR driver from the the very early days, the 50s. And then you have Jeff Gordon, who, most people who follow NASCAR racing of the recent, decade, 20 years or so will know who Jeff Gordon is. So you see both versions of his card as well. So if you're unfamiliar with the game, there are TV drivers, which are kind of featured drivers, and they get a little boost. They get a little extra chance to do something during the race because they were featured or whatever. They're having a good week, etc. So they get a card that, when you lay it out, it signifies that they're kind of those TV drivers. So we see both versions of the card here, the gold version and the regular version. They're identical otherwise. But I really like the colors and stuff, and they have these white and red colors. And there's also blue, red, white, and blue racing, right? So that also will be used to help denote for getting people into the race, because you only have typically 43 slots in a NASCAR race. There are 75 drivers in here, so how do you choose which ones get in and which ones don't? So they use the red, white, and blue system for that. At least I believe. I haven't actually looked at this in depth yet because, like I said, I haven't opened it. So let's take care of that right now. I'm going to tear into this. There is a note on the back from Keith, and these, if you've bought sets from Plaay before, whether it's History Maker baseball or second season football or red, white, and blue racing or hockey blast or whatever it may be, you're going to get a sheet with the season information on the season in there, and that's basically what this is, right? So he talks about their methodology of deciding how they wanted to rate the drivers, because you have drivers who were driving 1950s hot rods, essentially, going up against today's highly technical, very, very advanced generation of stock cars, which they still call them stock cars, but they, aside from the look of the shape of the car, they bear very, very little resemblance to anything you're going to find on a dealer's floor. So that's in here, and there's some other stuff too. It talks about why they laid out the cards differently, and the red, white, and blue annotation here is at the bottom. But anyway, let's take a look at what's in here. All their bags, all their packaging is typically really just a bag, and you can open it and pull everything out quite easily. So on this side, there's a cover card, and the driver cards and the track cards are kind of attached to that. So we'll get to that in a minute. One thing I wanted to look at first, and here's the back of that card that I was talking about, was about how they want to set up the qualification, right? My idea was to conduct a normal race week, but set the cutoff at 38 cars. Then everyone who doesn't qualify, that would be 37, races in a preliminary wildcard race event. Driver 39 gets pole, 40 starts second, etc., right? Jeff felt, and I agree, that a lot of people wouldn't want to run a wildcard race. They'd rather get right to the good stuff. Plus, that idea has the potential to equally exclude better and poorer drivers from the first tier. So each driver is assigned to a color-coded group noted underneath their gas pedal symbols, as we saw a moment ago. So we separate the drivers by groups, red, white, and blue. All of the red drivers are always included in race week. So basically, they tiered the drivers is the way I'm reading this, and your red drivers will be top tier guys. So these are going to be the real legends. Guys like Jeff Gordon, guys like Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt. I'm sure those guys are all red group guys. I haven't looked yet, but I'm sure I can see Jeff Gordon's red, but I'm assuming obviously Richard Petty, Jimmy Johnson, Dale Earnhardt, and I'm sure many others are red group guys, right? So the red guys already automatically get in. The white group shuffle and randomly choose 6 cards. These drivers are considered to not to have participated in the race. Rest of the white group goes to race week, joining the red group. Then you shuffle the blue group cards and again randomly choose 6. These 6 join the race week group. The rest of the blue group is considered not to have participated in this race. Note that if you like, you can add an element of randomness to the group procedure by rolling the 2 metallic dice and adding them, then randomly select that number of drivers from the group, similar to what's done in the TV driver and fast and slow week segment. So for example, if you roll a 4 for the white group, only remove 4 of them instead of 6. If you roll a 9, allow 9 drivers to participate in race week. From there, conduct a normal race week procedure. So basically, you end up with bubble drivers. I mean, it depends on the set you're using. Some of the sets have a lot of drivers, and you get a lot of bubble drivers, and the bubble drivers don't. Some of them make it in, depending on where they end up in this random drawing. Some of them do not. So it would be a situation similar to that is how I'm reading this. They have track cards as well, and they're calibrated for a timeless presentation. So they've kind of tried to calibrate everybody in what, in like baseball terms, you would call a normalization, where you basically, you look at them against their peers and rate them based on that. So obviously in the older days, you had a lot more mechanical failures than you do today. But some drivers had more than the average and some drivers had less than the average. So you can take that, that delta from the average and use that to create your rating. It's the same way if you wanted to take Babe Ruth, who hit, 60 home runs when the average player maybe hit 8, and say, well, he's that much better. And then you time travel him to a period where the average player maybe hit 15, and all of a sudden he's, hitting 100 or something like that. But that's the gist of it. So the first thing I wanted to show was actually the track, because if you're familiar with red, white, and blue racing, you have a track sheet, which is similar to this. It's not really a track sheet. It's more of a placeholder, right? If you watched any of my Scram 60 videos, you'll know that I use the rubberized mat, which has the entire field on one display. In this case, this is only one. This is the top group. Well, the leader with the track card, the top group, and half of the middle group. And then the other half of the middle group is here. And the bubble stack, well, not the bubble stack, but the bottom group is actually in a stack. That's the way you play the game if you don't have the play mat. I sprung for the play mat because it allows me to lay out the entire grid. So this is going to be very big, and I'm not zoomed out. But you can get the idea that basically you lay them side by side like this. So it's a much longer board. And I suppose you could, if you wanted to really get daring, kind of do it like this. It's up to you based on your preferences, I suppose. The point being that you need, and this got a little bent up thanks to our crack postal service. They're real good at shoving things in the mailbox that probably shouldn't be shoved in the mailbox. But anyway, yeah, it got a little dinged up here, which is annoying, but it is what it is. So because the cards are landscape, they have to go like this as opposed to portrait where they're up and down, and they're also larger. So not as much real estate is what I'm saying. You can't use the baseboard. So this board comes with this purchase. So this is almost like getting a complete game, except you don't get the rules, you don't get the dice, and so on and so forth. So let's pull some of these off here. So they're kind of stuck on. And we'll take a look at some of these cards. So these are the gold cards, as you can see by the gold lines in there. And so just going through, we've got Gordon, Kyle Petty's a blue, Curtis Turner white, Marvin Panch blue, Tony Stewart red, Bobby Labonte white, Kyle Busch red. So none of these are surprising to me. David Pearson red, Matt Kenseth white, Greg Biffle blue, Joe Weatherly red. Now there's a name that a lot of people probably wouldn't remember because old timer. Dale Earnhardt Jr. white, Alan Kulwicki also white, Cotton Owens is a blue, Mark Martin's a white, Terry Labonte red, Jeff Bodine blue, Dave Marcis white, Bobby Isaac white, Janet Guthrie blue, Bill Rexford white, Tiny Lund blue, AJ Foyt blue. Now a lot of people will remember AJ Foyt for Formula One, Indy cars. Bob Wellborn blue, Junior Johnson, that's a big name in NASCAR history. He's white. Known probably almost more by the current generation as an owner than a driver. Tim Richmond blue, Bobby Allison red, Joey Logano red, Red Byron white, Darrell Waltrip red, not a surprise, Ned Jarrett red, Denny Hamlin white, Ricky Rudd white, Bill Elliott white, Casey Kane blue, Chase Elliott white, and then we get a couple of blanks here. And we're back to the top with Jeff Gordon. Now if we pull the other half off, because that was obviously only half of the crew. We did not see Dale Earnhardt or the King. Here's Fireball Roberts, he's a white. Leroy Yarborough, blue. Kurt Busch, white. Herb Thomas, red. Dale Jarrett, white. Buck Baker, red. Martin Truex, white. Benny Parsons, white. Sterling Marlin, blue. Wendell Scott, blue. Harry Gant, blue. Dick Hutcherson, blue. Davey Allison, white. And I like how you get like the 80s looking car, and then you'll get the 70s looking car for Fred Lorenzen, who's white. Rusty Wallace, white. Clint Boyer, blue. Buddy Baker, white. Jim Paschal, white. Fonty Flock, blue. Now there's an old 40s looking car for you right there. Neil Bonnet, blue. Ryan Newman, blue. Cale Yarborough, red. Kyle Larson, white. Kevin Harvick, white. Rex White, appropriately white. Ernie Irvan, blue. Dale Earnhardt, there he is, red. Brad Keselowski, white. Donnie Allison, blue. Tim Flock, red. This is actually, he's got two cars. They look to be the same, but this is the Hudson, and this one's a Chrysler. Dick Rathman, blue. Jeff Burton, blue. Carl Edwards, white. Paul Goldsmith, blue. Jimmy Johnson, red, as I would expect. Jack Johnson, blue. Speedy Thompson, blue. Richard Petty, there he is. The King. Now look at, I mean, he's got a lot of qualities. Some of them starred, which makes them basically double. That fast pit number is outstanding. Gold trophy with an A pit quality. Yeah, the max gas, the max brake. Richard Petty is a complete stud, as you would expect. And his father, Lee Petty, he's red as well. And then we're back to the top with Fireball Roberts. So there are your 75 drivers that are in here. Now let's take a look at the tracks. And the white cards are the same. It's just they're regular non-TV driver cards. Whatever adhesive they're using at Play is pretty strong, because I had to tug pretty hard to get the track cards off there. All right, so 75 years of racing track cards. So rules for a 100-mile race. If you have some of the old-timer sets, the Pioneer set, the 7D set, and the Scram 60 set, and I have all three of those, you get a sheet that basically has this on it. So we have Watkins Glen, the famous road course in New York State. Texas Motor Speedway, intermediate. Talladega. And if you're unfamiliar with the game, the tracks, the characteristics of the track really come into play with what these quality checks are. And if you're familiar with dice and how probability works with two six-sided dice, you know that 7 is the most common outcome when you roll two six-siders. So whatever's in the middle is what's going to occur the most often, in theory. Obviously, it varies because they are dice and random. And your 2 and 12 occur least often. So for Talladega, problem, which is typically a mechanical issue with an automobile or a car, race car. Some tracks, short track, dirt track, the problem would be closer to the middle because those are the more, you start wide, these are the most rare, and as you get closer and closer to 7, they become more frequent. So having problem at a 2 means that you're not going to get a lot of problems at Talladega, and you're also not going to get many rare events at Talladega, rare is going to be in the 12 slot a lot, sometimes in the 2 slot like it is at Sonoma. It's up here. But you can see we have a trouble result for 5. Now trouble typically is an accident. So you get a wreck, and drivers can get collected into the event, and obviously you can have yellow flags and so on. Rural County Fairgrounds. So this is kind of a generic track. It's a dirt track, Anytown, USA. And you'll see you have trouble at 10. Then you'll get problems, add problem to end of turn on a 7. So on a 7, you're going to do a heat check on the driver. And some drivers will have a heat quality. Let's see if I can find one real quick. Yeah, here we go. Dale Jarrett, for example, has a heat quality right there. So you roll a 7 if he's on the Rural County Fairgrounds here, and we roll a 7 when we're doing our turns. We would be checking him, assuming his group was selected. And then at the end of that turn, because of our little mark here, we have to add a problem to the end of the turn, where we have to check for problems because dirt track racing was a little bit hectic, and there actually wasn't a lot of movement in those races either. Riverside International, another road course, and you can see here the TV. So TV drivers would get a chance to move up. Basically, you check the quality. If they have the quality, they have the opportunity to move up. And you would check a problem there too. You also get the distance of that and the distance of the course or the track, and then you get die modifiers for rolling for escape, which is escape is you're trying to avoid trouble. And then repair is your pit crew's ability to fix your car if you do have a problem. Then we have Richmond, Pocono, Phoenix, Occoneechee, another dirt track. And so you have a problem at 4, and you get a problem again on a 10. So there's a lot of math you can do if you're trying to make your own tracks and stuff. And there is a booklet that explains the process where you can figure out, how to populate this list. North Carolina, North Wilkesboro, New Hampshire, Nashville, Michigan, Martinsville, Las Vegas, Langhorne, Kansas, Indianapolis. There are a lot of these. Hub City, which is another, this is dirt track in Spartanburg. Greenville, Pickens, so another dirt track. And the color of the card kind of indicates what type of track it is. You see like this, these are dirt tracks, so they have kind of this yellowish gold color. And then a silver color, it'd be an intermediate track. Road course is the more bright gold. Super speedways are blue. And here's, probably the most famous track in NASCAR, Daytona. And you can see problem is on 12 and rare is on 2. So they have equal chances, but they're both extremely rare. And your most common one is going to be star. So your more popular drivers, your more, I forget, I do have the book and I don't want to give away any secrets, but I don't even exactly remember what the criteria is for assigning star to a driver. So there's Darlington. So Darlington being intermediate. Then we have another dirt track, Columbia. And behind that, Charlotte Motor Speedway. Bristol Short Track, red. So we have another super speedway, the Auto Club Speedway in Fontana, California. The Atlanta Motor Speedway. Asheville, Weaverville, and we're back to the top. So there are your tracks. There, I don't know how many there are. I could probably count them, and I probably should know this, but I do not. So that is a look at 75 years of racing from Plaay for the game Red, White, and Blue Racin'. I will almost certainly be playing this, and I will probably do one video, maybe more, depending if you guys want to see it on this at some point. I've got my Scram 60 play season going on right now. I don't want to interrupt that necessarily, but I will definitely be playing this, and I will put up a video of it at some point. As I'm sure will other people. There are a lot of people that play this game, and they make content for it, so you will be able to see it. Keith, of course, has a video on this as well. So if you want to hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, you can check that out. It's on the Plaay.com website. But that is going to do it. Thank you, as always, for watching. Please feel free to comment, ask questions, etc. Also, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. That's always welcome. But yeah, that's going to do it. Until next time, my name's Joe. This is Hexed Encountered, and happy gaming.